Welcome everybody once again to the Unfictional Soundscape. I am your host and producer, Authorman. Tonight is quite special as it is our first real episode. I've been very excited to talk about this for a while, so we should just jump right into it. Tonight's topic is an oldie but a goodie. Nick Nocturne, aka Nightmind, did a video on this same channel about 4 years ago if my memory serves me correct. And it is one of the most unique unfiction pieces I can think of. It's the one and the only Aspicio Omniam. This piece, I think, is a perfect place to start the podcast. Because while it has quite a few visual elements that are really cool, its individuality is derived entirely from its heavy focus on sound design and music. The effects used in the videos and its story featured primarily on the blog spot are both eye-catching and fascinating, and there's a lot of clear work put into them. But when I talk about Aspicio Omniam with other people who like unfiction, I ain't talking about it for either of those things. I'm talking about it for the music. Aspicio Omniam takes its focus on soundtrack and makes it truly unique by creating something that in all seriousness genuinely scares me. I did not think it was possible for music alone to put me on the edge of my seat, but by Jove, Aspicio Omniam does it with ease. I'd also like to preface that this analysis is by no means comprehensive, and I'll very likely be doing a second episode talking about this topic, so don't get too upset if I don't talk about your favorite video. We'll get to it another time, I promise. Now that we're all done with the introductions and niceties, we can get into the thing that we're all really here for. Aspicio Omniam is the Latin phrase for I see all, which I should point out is spelled incorrectly. Technically, it is spelled O-M-N-I-U-M rather than O-M-N-I-A-M. It is unclear whether this is intentional or not. I sure hope it is, because otherwise that would be kind of embarrassing. The story of Aspicio Omniam is quite nebulous. It is about people being stuck in an apartment complex after some kind of apocalyptic event has them trapped, and that's about it. Aspicio Omniam isn't necessarily cornering the market for unfiction characters either. As far as I can tell, the only recurring character we have in this series is the person that owns the YouTube channel and the blogspot. Our protagonist is someone who operates under the alias of Pitheor, which could either be relating to the word Pitheor, which means terse and full of substance, or it could be the Latin word for tub. By the way, if you haven't seen Aspicio Omniam, I'd highly recommend you go watch it very quickly, specifically the videos Pitheor, Inanity, and PHR 2-771 educational video, because I'll be discussing them in great detail tonight. The first video we'll be taking a closer look at is called Pitheor, uploaded on November 1st, 2013. This is one of the 2 now unlisted videos on the channel. It is unknown why exactly they were unlisted, although it is very likely because the creator just didn't think they were important. Regardless, you can still watch the re-uploads from other channels. Pitheor I find to be somewhat somber, or even doleful, with the odd tolling of what I believe is a bell in the background. I'm sure some of you remember this thing, but it reminds me of an old RPG Maker game called Ebe. Pitheor has a very similar feeling to the track used in the main menu for that game, which all culminates in making this video feel weirdly nostalgic for me. I'd like to note that this melody does not make its way back into the series in any way that I could find, which I think is odd. This could be because, again, the creator didn't think it mattered or it wasn't important enough and found better ways to represent Pitheor. I still want to talk about it though, because I think it can offer some insight, and it also does something really interesting. Now, some of the classical aficionados in the audience might recognize this melody from an entirely different place, somewhere that took me somewhat by surprise when I first figured it out. This melody was originally created by Johann Sebastian Bach, and it was used in a piece called Badinnerie. Badinnerie means jester or joke in French. Another name for the piece could be scherzo, which is Italian for the same word as the former. Badinnerie is very obviously a classical piece and also very obviously a Bach piece if listened to. I can't play it here because of licensing rights, so I'll just describe it. The piece is in the key of B minor, and it includes a solo flute accompanied by violins. It is also a wonderful song to wake up to. It is bouncy and joyful, which lines up quite well with the title. Now, the original song is typically performed at a steady 120 beats per minute in 2/4 time. The melody requires a good amount of technique to play, so it is often used by flautists or flutists to show off their skill with their instrument. Pitheor is a bit slower at about 100 beats per minute and still 2/4. The key this time, I believe, is E harmonic minor, and it is also played on a piano, and the last time I checked there were no ominous bells playing during Badinnerie. So, needless to say, Pitheor is quite different from its original counterpart. Some of you might be asking, why is it important that Pitheor uses the melody from an old song? Well, I think it's important because it tells us about our protagonist and eye in the sky, the character Pitheor. See, Pitheor the character is quite the joker. They are the wild card that controls our perspective on whatever is happening in this world. They like to crack jokes about people going missing, being the smartest person in the room, and also jokes about feet for whatever reason. So, we have this song, and we have our protagonist sharing the same name, and to me, there's a clear comparison to be made. I think these two songs, Badinnerie and Pitheor, sharing a melody is important because it might represent the change that the character Pitheor has gone through since this whole thing started, changing from what might have been a harmless prankster to a somber sadist, cracking jokes and organizing events to their tenant's ultimate expense, just to get a laugh. Now, next up in the queue, we've got Inanity, uploaded on October 27th, 2013. At a glance, it seems like the title fits the video. Inanity doesn't seem to have or do much at all. I can't say much about the content of the visual element, because that's not what I'm here to do. What I can say is that we're hearing a couple of things. First of all, we're hearing what sounds like someone striking a long wire, creating an odd, for a lack of a better word, wow 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 effect. Which is similar to how they created the blaster SFX in Star Wars, by the way. That's some fun trivia for you. We can also hear what seems to be thunder, and what also seems to be an odd rising and descending tone. I'm not entirely sure what Inanity is saying, if anything at all, but I think that's the point. This is the first currently public video on the channel, and now that I consider it, I believe this is why the other two videos might have been privated. Inanity is the first stage of what Pitheor calls Ascension. Therefore, we start with the video Inanity, an action that doesn't seem to have any sort of meaning. Speaking of things having little to no meaning, we're gonna have a quick minute break and we'll be right back after that. Starting a podcast is really hard. Uploading directly to YouTube basically guarantees that you're not going to get any cash out of it unless it gets super popular, and even then it's not going to be much. Uploading directly to Spotify or Apple Music has you jumping through all of these hoops to even get started, and going to SoundCloud will... I don't know any podcasts on SoundCloud, so that basically tells you how effective it is as a podcast platform. Using Anchor as my main publishing and distributing platform has made my life immensely easier. Not only does it function as a solid and clean homepage for my content with links to any other platforms I'm connected with, it also distributes my content directly to other listening platforms like Spotify, guaranteeing that I don't have to deal with the fuss of uploading it there myself. Anchor also sends me offers for sponsorships natively on the platform, and uploading the advertisements along the episode is easy peasy lemon yeezy. I think the thing I like the most about Anchor is how accessible it is. If you do not have a computer powerful enough to work with a digital audio workstation, or you don't even know where to begin with something like that, or you don't even have a computer, Anchor has you covered by having everything you need in the app and website natively, so there is no reason for outside tinkering if you're wanting to get your podcast up and running ASAP. So, to recap, Anchor distributes your podcast to every audio platform automatically. Anchor makes it super easy to get paid for your hard podcast work, and has everything you need to get started natively, and most importantly, all of these features are 500% free of charge. No monthly or annual subscription involved. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, that is ANCHOR.FM, to get started. And we're back. Hope that break was long enough. Let me know if it wasn't. I'll make it longer or shorter. Alrighty, so the third and final video we'll be talking about is absolutely the most popular on the Aspicio Omniam channel. PHR2/771 educational video. This one is quite notorious in the unfiction community, and I don't need to tell you that if you're a fan of that kind of content. I might have downplayed the effects and editing earlier on this episode, and I apologize for that because my God, the design and visuals are incredibly unique to the channel. Nobody else has made something that makes me feel like this in anything ever. That is a large claim to be making, but it is 100% genuine. PHR is entirely unique in any piece of media that I have ever seen. I really like this video. It is the perfect example of grabbing your attention from an unreliable narrator's perspective. It's like House of Leaves on DMT. Now, of course, you're not here to hear me talk about visuals or any of that stuff. You want to hear about the soundtrack, and my God. Like I said before, the soundtrack is truly something to behold. When I decided that I'd do this podcast, I was very interested to figure out why exactly PHR unsettles me so much. The visuals are absolutely a part of it, but for me, they aren't as unsettling as the music that's playing. The music starts by setting the tone, which is unease. First couple measures here, we've got this simple, alternating, harsh rhythm. PHR is exemplary of the Aspicio Omniam style, where it starts with a specific sound or sounds and then builds on top of them over the course of the song. And then we'll occasionally switch out those building blocks for other sounds, depending on the vibe they're going for. I think the rhythm for PHR unsettles me because it sounds like somebody is banging on my wall or door, which is intentional. The rolling thunder that comes in every so often also helps to set the mood of unease. And then we're hit with this weird, hazy drug trip sound that takes us into the next part of the song, again adding those bits that add that tension. I think what's truly genius about PHR is its tension and its delivery on that tension. Its rhythm acts as the pressure for the scene, and then It'll hit you with a quick succession of beats that surprise you, maybe even scares you. And like I said before, this song paired with the visuals really makes for the perfect combo. I can't say for sure, but I think this song is in C major, and the, guitar part has some chromaticism thrown in there. The meter is 4/4, and the beats per minute is about 123, and it keeps both of those for the whole song, basically. Like I said, this is the most popular video on the channel by far, and that is for good reason. This video has solidified itself in the history of Unfiction as a must-watch to really get into the medium. It doesn't have the most meaning, but it absolutely has some of the most originality in the entire field. This is a perfect case study of keeping your audience's attention with just the soundtrack. Aspicio Omniam is really something special in the community. It is that to-the-art cliche, but with a very welcome twist of originality. The only issue that I really have with Aspicio Omniam as a whole is the fact that there isn't a whole lot of story. You know, we get these vignettes of people's lives and such in the apartments, but there isn't really anybody we directly connect with. The only person that we hear from consistently enough to connect with for sure is Pitheor, and, well, relating to them is kind of like relating to the Joker. They aren't really meant to be connected with. The lack of a clear, cohesive story and characters doesn't ruin the series for me, not at all, but I think I'd put it in my top favorite Unfiction pieces if it did have that direct human element to it. I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but it's become somewhat of a theme in the community's creations that any kind of character connection or really any story is hidden behind websites and codes and languages. Again, this isn't a bad thing, but it is something that happens really often in the community, and I kinda wish it didn't. Regardless of my criticisms, Aspicio Omnium still has the best soundtrack and some of the best sound design in the entire field of Unfiction. And for that, its name has been solidified in the community as a mainstay and a must-watch. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Unfictional Soundscape. Remember to share this podcast with your friends and family if you think they'd enjoy hearing about the intricacies of the world's most unique genre. If you're listening to this on YouTube, remember to subscribe so you can tune in for next week's project, and if you like the video, feel free to give it a like. Thank you again so much for tuning in. Remember to look behind you, and I'll see you again next